Someone in your life right now is 5 years away from being wealthy, and you would never guess who. It is not the coworker who just leased a brand new SUV, and it is not the friend posting beach photos from Cancun. It is probably the quiet one, the one driving a 12-year-old Corolla and splitting an appetizer while everyone else orders steak. Almost everyone reads wealth signals backwards. 13 behaviors expose who is quietly getting rich, and once you learn them, you cannot unsee them. Keep score as we go. How many describe you? But this story does not start at the restaurant table. It starts inside the largest study of millionaires ever conducted, a survey of more than 10,000 American millionaires run by Ramsey Solutions. The findings dismantled almost every assumption about what rich people look like. 79% of them received no inheritance at all. A full third never earned six figures in any single year of their working lives. The most common careers were not hedge fund manager or tech founder. Engineers, accountants, teachers, managers, and attorneys topped the list. 62% graduated from ordinary public state schools, not elite private ones. Ordinary paychecks, ordinary degrees, extraordinary outcomes. Which means wealth is not built in public. Wealth is built in habits so quiet that the people standing right next to them miss it completely. Those habits leave fingerprints. And the 13 you are about to learn show up over and over in the people who cross the finish line. Watch for them in your coworkers, your family, and most importantly, in yourself. Number 1. They drive the car nobody compliments. The future wealthy person in your office is probably parked in the far corner of the lot, sitting in a paid-off sedan with a scratched bumper and 140,000 miles on it. Meanwhile, the average American with a new car loan in early 2026 is paying a record $770 every single month, according to Experian data. The average loan runs almost 70 months, nearly 6 years of payments on a machine losing value every day. Nearly 1 in 5 new car loans now cost over $1,000 a month, and even the average used car payment has climbed to $531. That is not a typo, by the way. $1,000 a month has become the normal price of simply getting to work in something used. Take Jonas, an accountant earning $62,000 a year. His coworkers tease him about his aging Honda in the office parking garage. What they do not see is the $770 a month he is not sending to a lender. Invested in a simple index fund earning 8%, that money grows to roughly $56,500 in 5 years. Left alone for 30 years, it becomes over $1.1 million. That is the actual price tag hanging on a new car smell. So when you spot someone who could clearly afford better wheels and simply refuses, pay attention. That scratched bumper might be the most expensive looking thing they could ever show you, because the money is parked somewhere it can grow. Jonas figures his coworkers have spent close to $50,000 on payments during the same stretch he built his first six-figure milestone, and not one of them has ever asked him how. Number 2, they know their numbers cold. Ask the average person what they spent on food delivery last month and you get a shrug. Ask a future millionaire and you get an answer within $20. This sounds small. It is not small. A person who tracks their money on a kitchen table spreadsheet every Sunday night is running their household like a business. And businesses that watch their cash survive. Research on millionaires has shown for decades, going all the way back to the classic studies behind The Millionaire Next Door, that the wealthy spend far more time planning their finances than the people who merely look wealthy. Knowing your numbers changes behavior automatically. Once you see that streaming services, impulse orders, and forgotten subscriptions quietly drain $300 or $400 a month, canceling them stops feeling like sacrifice and starts feeling like picking money up off the floor. The method matters less than the habit. Some use an app, some use a notebook, and plenty just keep a single page listing every account balance and every debt updated monthly. Watching that one number move becomes more satisfying than anything it could buy. The person who can tell you their net worth to the nearest $100 is not obsessed. They are simply awake. And here is the detail that everyone misses. Tracking is free. It requires no raise, no inheritance, and no luck, which is exactly why it shows up so early in people who end up wealthy while their income still looks completely unremarkable. Number 3, their money moves before they can touch it. Watch what happens on payday. The person heading toward wealth never actually sees their investing money sitting in checking because it leaves automatically within a day of arriving. A transfer fires into the 401k, capturing every dollar of employer match, which is the only guaranteed 100% return in American finance. Another fires into a Roth IRA. A third slides into a savings account at a completely different bank, far from impulsive fingers. Only what remains is available to spend, and life quietly reshapes itself around that number. Fidelity reported that in early 2026, the average employee savings rate hit 9.6%, the highest ever recorded, with total savings rates including employer match reaching 14.4%. The savers driving those records are not white-knuckling their discipline every month. They automated the decision once and let the system win the argument forever. Talia, a hospital billing specialist, set up automatic transfers of $650 a month at age 26. She never renegotiates with herself in a weak moment because the negotiation never happens. 5 years later, at 8% growth, that single decision is worth nearly $48,000. Ask her about discipline and she laughs because she has not made an active saving decision in 5 years. Willpower is a terrible long-term strategy, and the research on automatic enrollment keeps proving it. The people getting rich quietly figured that out early, and they built a machine that saves whether they feel motivated or not. Number 4, the gap between what they earn and what they live on keeps widening. Income does not build wealth. The gap does. Someone earning $200,000 and spending $200,000 is treading water in nicer shoes. Someone earning $55,000 and living on $42,000 is building an escape velocity that compounds every single year. The quietly wealthy obsess over that gap the way other people obsess over their salary. They negotiate rent hard, sometimes taking a roommate for an extra year or living 15 minutes farther from downtown. Housing stays under a quarter of take-home pay even when everyone around them stretches to the maximum a lender will approve, because the mortgage broker's ceiling was never meant to be a target. Meals mostly come from their own kitchen, and restaurants become occasions instead of defaults. None of it looks impressive on social media, and that is precisely the point. The gap is invisible. You cannot photograph the $400 that did not leave someone's account this month. But over 5 years, a $1,000 monthly gap invested at 8% grows past $73,000. And the habits that created it only get stronger with practice. So if someone you know seems weirdly calm about money despite a modest job, check for the gap. Calm is what a widening gap feels like from the inside. Number 5, they buy assets while everyone else buys appearances. Every dollar you spend picks a side. It either buys something that decays or something that pays. The future wealthy send their money toward things that produce more money. Index funds inside a 401k. A Roth IRA maxed at $7,500 under the 2026 limit. Fractional shares bought on a Tuesday lunch break. The Ramsey Millionaire Study found that 8 out of 10 millionaires built their wealth primarily through their workplace retirement plan, the most boring instrument in all of finance. Not crypto lottery tickets, not a flashy startup exit, a payroll deduction into diversified funds repeated for decades, usually in low-cost index funds where the fees stay tiny and the strategy fits on a sticky note. Boring turned out to be the entire secret, and the industry has spent 50 years trying to talk people out of it. Meanwhile, the person who looks rich is financing a lifestyle that bleeds value, a leased German sedan, a wardrobe refreshed every season, a phone upgraded annually on a payment plan. 10 years later, the two of them stand in very different rooms. One owns a portfolio quietly throwing off dividends. The other owns a closet of last year's status. If that sounds bad, keep watching, because the next sign is where the separation really begins. Number 6. Raises disappear the day they arrive. Something strange happens when the quietly wealthy get a raise. Their lifestyle does not move an inch. Ingrid, a project coordinator, got bumped from $58,000 to $63,000 last year. Her friends assumed a nicer apartment was coming. Instead, she raised her automatic investment by the entire difference, about $200 a month after taxes, and kept living exactly as before. Invested at 8%, that single raise becomes almost $15,000 in 5 years and nearly $300,000 over a 30-year career. One raise. Compare that to the standard script, where every pay bump gets absorbed within 2 months by a bigger car payment and a few upgraded habits, a pattern economists call lifestyle inflation. The same discipline applies to tax refunds, bonuses, and birthday money, which the quietly wealthy treat as reinforcements for the future rather than permission slips for them all. Lifestyle inflation is the silent killer of six-figure earners, and it explains why the Ramsey study found that only 31% of millionaires ever averaged $100,000 a year across their careers. The winners did not out-earn everybody, they simply refused to let their spending chase their income. When you meet someone whose life looks frozen in time while their career keeps climbing, you are not looking at someone stuck. You are looking at someone loading a spring. Number 7. Their emergency fund is fully loaded and completely boring. Nearly a quarter of Americans have zero emergency savings heading into 2026, according to Bankrate, and fewer than half could comfortably cover a $1,000 surprise. The future wealthy live in a different universe. Somewhere in their financial life sits a plain, unglamorous pile of cash, 3 to 6 months of expenses, parked in a high-yield savings account, earning around 4%, while the national average savings account still pays about 0.6. On $10,000, that difference alone is $400 a year instead of $60, just for choosing a better parking spot. But the interest is not really the point. The point is what the cushion prevents. A blown transmission, a layoff, an emergency room bill, these events shove unprepared people onto credit cards charging over 21%, unwinding years of progress in a single bad month. The person with the boring cash pile absorbs the same hit and keeps investing without breaking stride. Their retirement account never gets rated, their cards never balloon, and the compounding clock never resets to zero. Emergencies stop being financial events and become mere inconveniences. Building it does not require drama either. $250 a month reaches $3,000 in a single year, enough to turn the most common emergencies into paperwork. That is why the fund comes before the fancy stuff. It is the armor that makes every other sign on this list possible to sustain. Number 8. They treat high-interest debt like a house fire. The average American carrying a credit card balance owes about $6,700, and the average rate on interest accruing cards sat at over 21.5% in early 2026, according to Federal Reserve data. Run the math on that, and it gets ugly fast. Paying $150 a month against that balance takes 92 months, nearly 8 years, and costs almost $7,000 in interest, more than the original debt itself. The quietly wealthy understand something the marketing never says out loud. Paying off a card charging 21% is a guaranteed 21% return, better than any investment they will ever legally find. So they attack it with a ferocity that looks almost strange from the outside, usually lining the balances up by interest rate and demolishing the most expensive one first while paying minimums on the rest, the approach the math always favors. Everett, a warehouse supervisor, threw $800 a month at his cards for 14 months straight, eating rice bowls from home and skipping 2 vacations while his friends wondered why he had gotten so cheap. Then the balance hit 0, and every dollar that had been feeding a bank started feeding his future instead. From the outside, the debt payoff years look like someone falling behind. They are actually the moment the rocket detaches its dead weight. If this way of seeing money is landing for you, take 1 second and subscribe and stick around, because every week we break down exactly how ordinary paychecks turn into real wealth. No hype, just verified math. Number 9. They are completely immune to looking broke. Here is the psychological superpower underneath everything you have heard so far. The future wealthy have opted out of the status game entirely, and opting out is harder than it sounds. Researchers who studied America's millionaires found decades ago that most of them wear ordinary clothes, live in ordinary neighborhoods, and drive ordinary cars, while the flashy spenders around them hold surprisingly thin portfolios. The culture teaches the opposite lesson from childhood, that rich people look rich, and if you do not display it, you must not have it. The quietly wealthy simply stopped believing that, and the moment the belief died, an entire category of spending died with it. No upgrade cycle. No keeping up with anyone. Just a strange, growing freedom that the people still trapped in the game quietly envy without understanding. A coworker raises an eyebrow at their old phone. A relative jokes about their discount jacket at Thanksgiving dinner, and none of it moves them, because they measured themselves against a spreadsheet instead of an audience. I mean, think about that for a second. Every status purchase is a payment to strangers for an opinion that lasts 4 seconds. The person who feels no need to make that payment keeps the money, and the money keeps compounding. If you know someone who seems genuinely unbothered by driving the worst car in the parking lot, do not pity them. There is a decent chance they are the richest person on the block already, and an even better chance they know something about the neighbors with the newest cars that the driveway never shows. Number 10. They pour money into their own earning power. Look at what the quiet ones buy when they finally do spend, and a pattern jumps out. Courses, certifications, books stacked on a nightstand, a laptop for the freelance work they do on Saturday mornings. The Ramsey Millionaire data showed engineers, accountants, and teachers reaching 7 figures on ordinary salaries, and one reason is that skills compound just like dollars do. A project coordinator who spends $900 on a certification and turns it into a $6,000 raise just earned a return no stock market can match. And that raise repeats every single year afterward. Side income works the same way. An extra $500 a month from weekend work, invested at 8%, grows to nearly $37,000 in 5 years, all without touching the day job paycheck. Spending on yourself that increases what you can charge the world barely qualifies as spending. Think of it as buying a bigger shovel while everyone else buys nicer dirt. Income is the raw material of wealth, and the quietly rich never stop expanding the pipe that delivers it, even while keeping their lifestyle frozen. The people who look broke while quietly getting rich understand the difference between consumption dressed up as self-improvement and genuine investment in earning power, and their bank accounts show they can tell the two apart. Number 11. They think in 5-year blocks while everyone else thinks in paydays. Ask someone struggling with money about their plans, and the horizon is Friday. Ask a future millionaire, and the horizon is 2031. This one shift in time perception changes nearly every decision downstream of it. The first one, $100,000, is the brutal stretch, the years when compounding barely helps and the saving is all muscle. Investing $1,300 a month at 8% takes about 63 months to reach $100,000, just over 5 years of showing up. Slow, unglamorous, and then physics takes over. That same $100,000, left completely untouched at 8%, grows to roughly $685,000 over the following 25 years without another dime added. Warren Buffett's business partner Charlie Munger famously told a young investor to do whatever it takes to scrape together the first $100,000, because after that milestone, the money starts doing the heavy lifting. The 5-year thinkers know this in their bones, which is why market crashes barely register for them. A downturn during the building years simply means every automatic purchase buys more shares at a discount, a truth that panicked sellers learn too late and patient buyers profit from forever. They will eat the boring years happily because they can already see the decade where their portfolio out earns their paycheck. Now, they could coast once momentum arrives. They rarely do, because by then the habit has become identity, and identity does not take years off. The horizon simply rolls forward another 5 years. Number 12. They say no without apologizing. Every week, American Social Life issues invoices disguised as invitations. One week, it is a bachelor party in Miami. The next brings a ski weekend, then a birthday dinner at a restaurant where the entrees start at $40. Then a destination wedding that quietly demands $2,000 before the first toast. Saying yes to protect the friendship is the default script, with the damage going straight onto a card charging 21%. The future wealthy have mastered a different move, the warm, unapologetic no. They will suggest the hike instead of the resort, host the potluck instead of the tasting menu, and show up to the third birthday of the year with a heartfelt card instead of a $100 gift. What makes this a wealth signal is not the money saved on any single event. It is the underlying machinery, a person whose spending is steered by their own plan rather than by whoever happens to be asking. Social pressure is the single most underrated force in personal finance, and the data on emergency savings proves how many budgets die by 1,000 friendly cuts. Watch how someone handles an expensive invitation they cannot comfortably afford. If they can decline it warmly, twice, without a flicker of shame, you are watching a 5-year millionaire in training. Number 13. They already started, and they refuse to stop. The final sign is the least dramatic and the most predictive. The future wealthy began before they felt ready. They opened the account with $80. They took the employer match while broke, and through market drops, layoff scares, and every terrifying headline, they kept the transfers running. Fidelity's data on 401k millionaires shows the average member of that club contributed for over 25 years at a 17% savings rate, straight through every crash along the way. Consistency beat brilliance every single time. The 2026 contribution limits give a committed saver room to shelter $24,500 in a workplace plan plus $7,500 in an IRA. But the limits were never the obstacle. Starting was. Somebody who has been quietly investing $200 a month for the past 3 years through every scary headline has already demonstrated the one trait that the entire list depends on, the ability to keep a promise to their future self when nobody is watching and nothing feels urgent. The account balance might still look small today. The trajectory does not care how it looks. A rocket 3 seconds after launch sits lower than the birds, and nobody standing nearby doubts where it is headed. Momentum, not altitude, is what separates the future wealthy from everyone politely waiting to feel ready. So go back to that parking lot, that restaurant table, that quiet person everyone gently teases, the scratched sedan, the packed lunch, the polite no, the old phone. Every signal you were taught to read as falling behind might be the exact opposite. A person 5 years from a life most of the table will never build. 13 signs, and not a single one requires a big salary, a rich family, or luck. They require decisions repeated quietly until the math takes over. Count honestly, because the list works in both directions. It tells you who around you is quietly winning, and it tells you exactly where your own gaps are hiding. None of these habits require permission, a certain zip code, or a lucky break, and every single one can start on an ordinary Tuesday with an ordinary paycheck. If you recognized yourself in 8 or more of these, you are further along than your bank balance is currently willing to admit. If you found 3 or fewer, you now hold the exact checklist the wealthy have been running all along. And 5 years from today is coming either way. Every one of these 13 habits grows from the same root, and that root is financial literacy, the working knowledge of how money, interest, and time actually behave. Nobody is born knowing that a car payment can quietly cost $1 million, or that the first 100,000 does the heaviest lifting of your entire journey. Schools rarely teach any of it, which is why we made a full breakdown of the money lessons that build everything you watch today, explained from the ground up in plain language. Once these 13 habits start taking hold, sharpening that foundation is the natural next step, and it is waiting for you right here on this channel. Before you go, the comment section on this video is where the real stories live. Tell us which sign you recognized in yourself, which one called you out, and which one you are starting this week. If you have ever been the person getting teased over the old car or the packed lunch, share what it felt like and where you are now. Tell us the moment you stopped caring how your money choices looked to other people and what changed after. Someone reading your story is exactly 5 years behind you, and your comment might be the sign they needed.